All right, so we're going to get started. And what we're going to cover today is the Harmonize tool inside of Photoshop. So the Harmonize tool was introduced about a year and a half ago, or maybe a year ago. Basically uses AI to harmonize the color, the illumination level, and even the reflections and shadows between an object and a background. So you can almost look at it as a very advanced version of the old match color tool that uses AI and does a lot more than just color. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll dive in here. I'll show you basically how to use the tool. And then we're going to do a project from beginning to end and kind of show in a working project how you would use that Harmonize tool. Now there is a chat here. I will keep it on and I'll kind of glance at it every once in a while. So if you guys have any questions, please put it in there. And first thing I'm going to do is just share my screen. And if you guys can tell me in the chat when you can see my screen. It should be showing up here in a second. Perfect. Okay, great. All right, so first, let's just talk about what the tool does. Basically, if you have two layers, in this case, I'm going to take this apple and I'm going to remove the background from this apple. I'm going to pull this into here and then just do a quick transform with Command T for transform. And then I will make this about the size that it should be. So something like this. Okay, so obviously this does not look like it belongs in this scene. It looks like we composited in. So let's go ahead and use that Harmonize tool. Essentially what it's doing is it's reviewing the background, it's reviewing the object, and then working out what the color, the luminosity, and the shadows should be so that the object fits the background. And yes, probably the fact that I have live video going on and recording is definitely slowing this process down. But there you go. You can see it did a really good job. It added some reflection here or color bleed. It also changed our shadows here. It added a ground shadow. It made the whole thing much more yellow to match that environment. And it also gave us three options here. So that's basically how the tool works. Now from here, you can generate again. So let's say you didn't like any of these options. You kind of wanted to do another pass at coming up with a good harmonize. You can always do that. It does use AI credits. But sometimes you'll get better results that way. I've found generally that within the first three results, you're going to find something that's usable. But you can see here, like this one, it added a little bit of light on the left side there. That's something you might want. This one added a little bit of a highlight down there. Pretty subtle differences, but you can see how additional generations might get you something closer to what you had envisioned. So that's basically how the tool works. You're just pulling in your object, running the harmonize, and what it's doing is it's reviewing the background, reviewing your object, and making them harmonize together. So let's go ahead and take a look at some other files here. And we'll look at this example here. So this is a child, and if we cut out that background and we put him against a very different background like this, I'm going to go ahead and run the harmonize again. And down here, you'll see it's got this kind of two layers stacked on top of each other icon. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And with people, you'll usually see a more dramatic attempt by the AI to adjust the lighting of your person. So in this case, you can see he's strongly lit from the left side here, but the light source in this image is not coming from there. It looks like the sun just recently set, probably somewhere around here. So that's where the light would be coming from. So you can see it's, you know, very much flattened out his lighting. This doesn't look very nice. I think probably the one that retained the most of the original lighting looks the best. So let's go ahead and use this one. And now here I'm going to show you kind of like some tricks you can do to use the tool, but not just by clicking and using the first pass. So in this case, I like the color of this, but I like the detail of the original one. You can see we have more detail in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to clip it to this so that we're not getting that bleed off right here. And then I'm going to put this on color. So now I have my original luminosity, but the color from here. And even now I feel like that color is too strong in the highlights, meaning I like what it's doing to the shadows. It's making those shadows blue, but the highlights feel too desaturated, and it's making him look kind of deathly. So what I could do here is double click on my layer and go to my blend if options. And here I can say basically in the highlights, I don't want this to blend so much. So I'm going to take the highlights from the bottom here and kind of move this away. So now you can see I'm getting the color back into my highlights there. It is very clipped though, meaning it goes from that color to the blue with no real gradation. So if you hold down option, you can split these and create a feather there. So something like this. And we're getting some of that original in here. So maybe something like that. Now, even that honestly feels too much like it's been colored in post, as opposed to that's the actual color. So on this, what I might do instead is just take the opacity on this down so that we get some of that original color throughout. In this case, around 65% looks good. We're getting some of that original color through, but we have enough influence from the harmonized layer to make it look harmonized. So that's one example. Let's go ahead and remove that. And I'm going to change this to a very different background. Let's do harmonize again and see what kind of different results we get here. Now, when I was first testing this tool about 8 months ago or 12 months ago, it did a lot of degradation of your image, meaning the resolution dramatically dropped. I have noticed with the more recent updates that it's doing a much better job of keeping detail. So like the skin detail here and stuff, it is doing a much better job of that, which makes the tool much more valuable because you can use it, you know, on your actual subject rather than just kind of background elements or smaller elements of your file. So again, looking at just using it on the color layer, that helps harmonizing it without dramatically changing the coloring or the luminosity of your image. You could also do kind of a combo of both. So in this case, I could do one color, make a copy of it, and then for the other one, set it to normal, but take the opacity down. So something like that. And we could even try, once we have it to this, try harmonize again. Oops. I do like this one with the slightly more light hitting him there. But you can see now at two AI generations, it's starting to look a little more plastic. So we want to avoid that too. In that case, I might go back to my original here and just kind of bring in just a tiny bit. Even 20% of my original is giving me a little bit more of that detail in there. So there you can see how to use it there. I'm going to do one more example before we do our final composite here, and that is this elephant image. Because in this one, you're going to see how it handles shadows, and also we can look at a more dramatic example here where we're putting it in a cityscape with already, you know, colored lights and things like that. So let's go on here. We're going to hit Harmonize. And I will say, for some things, doing a curve is going to be faster than doing the Harmonize. The Harmonize does take some time. So if really the only difference is color and you don't have to mess with luminosity, oftentimes just doing a curve, especially if you know curves and no color, is going to be faster than doing Harmonize. Okay, but with Harmonize, you do get this nice color, like you can see here. The color bleed on there is really nice. The color hitting this, that's like a nice touch, you know. If you're doing compositing and I saw someone like had the attention to detail to put the highlight of the pink on that tusk right there, I'm like, okay, good, that guy knows compositing. So there you can see what it did. The one thing I don't like about this is we've lost quite a bit of detail from the elephant. So again, could try, and in this case, I really want that shadow, and if I clip it to the elephant, I'm losing that. So what I could do here is make a copy of it, put it below the elephant, and then scope this copy, meaning like mask out from this copy everything but that shadow on the ground. So if I go on the mask here, and I'm just going to go with my classic gradient here and kind of get rid of everything but this shadow that it's adding to the ground. So something like that. And then on this layer, I'll clip it to my elephant here so that it's attached to the original, and then maybe take the opacity down just a tiny bit. And then maybe make one more copy of it and then put that copy on color at 100%. That way, when I'm taking the opacity down on this to show more detail, it's not making the elephant more warm and yellow, which will make it not match that background. So something like that looks like it belongs in there, but we haven't lost that detail. So usually it's going to be a mix of using Harmonize, some mask, some clipping, some opacity. It's usually not going to be just like a one click, hey, everything's perfect with the Harmonize. But as you can see, it gets you to a final composite much, much faster. Okay, and if we take this guy, let's put him against this background. Now, one thing I have noticed is when you do a background that's already has a strong color grade, like this has a strong kind of cyan and warm color grade already, your result is going to, because it's trying to force it into those colors, your result is going to be a little more AI looking. And this is a good example of that. We're going to hit Harmonize here. And you can see this has kind of that AI plastic look to it, which you always want to avoid. But for this, I think I like this in terms of the lighting the best, but I don't like how plastic it looks. So we're going to do a combo here. I also do like these shadows. So I'm going to take first, just make a copy for the shadows here and kind of delete or get rid of everything that's not the shadow. So that would be this. Maybe I'll use a big brush here as well and just kind of paint out this part. Okay, so that's just giving me my shadow. And then for this layer, I'm going to clip it and then put it first on color. And then I'm going to make one more copy, put this back on normal. And here, I will do the blend if, and just, yeah, that's too much. Let's see here. Yeah, that's not working. All right, let's just take the overall opacity down. So something like that. I also really do like these highlights. I almost want them stronger. So I'm going to make one more copy of this, put it on 100% opacity, and see if I can just get rid of everything but those highlights with a curve. So something like that. I'm going to rasterize this too, and then put this on screen. And then take the opacity on that down too. And that's pretty good. You can see that is with our harmonize, and that's without. So pretty dramatic difference there. Okay, so now we've gone through kind of how to use the tool. If there's any questions, you can put them now if you guys have any questions on basic use of the tool. Otherwise, what I want to do is dive in and do an actual composite from beginning to end. It's going to be a mix of traditional compositing and some AI tools like Harmonize. So there you have it. I do really like the Harmonize tool. I think it's almost like the smart selections in that it took a process that used to take a lot of time in Photoshop and has sped it up dramatically while still giving you basically the same results that you could get before. In some cases, much better results if you weren't that good, or weren't as practiced in those tools. So great tool, definitely recommend it. And as you can see here, with a little bit of practice, it allows you to put together a composite from start to finish much faster. Now, I did do a color matching masterclass, which really covers in depth how to manually harmonize an object with the background. And then, of course, right after that, this tool came out and kind of made a lot of that antiquated. You could still do it manually, but this Harmonize tool has come a long way and definitely makes it a lot faster and easier to composite inside of Photoshop. So similar to the way that the smart selection tools have really sped up the process for compositing, the Harmonize tool is kind of another leap in that direction in terms of making actual Photoshop compositing much faster and easier.